Once upon a time, in the nation of Fontaine, the land of drama, deadlines, and unnecessarily fabulous hats, there ruled an archon named Furina. Or, well, so everyone thought. Furina, known formerly as Focalors, the Hydro Archon, was the very image of Fontaine's spirit. Loud, elegant, emotional, and probably fueled by nothing but sparkling water and spite. The people adored her. How could they not? She made grand speeches, hosted spectacular trials, wore 17 pounds of jewelry on a casual Tuesday. She was Fontaine's beloved idol, their protector, their queen of the stage. There was just one tiny problem. Furina was never actually a god. That's right, we're starting off strong with identity fraud at a cosmic level. To understand this divine mix-up, we need to rewind, like way back, to the time after the Cataclysm, when the world basically got hit by a cosmic sledgehammer. Fontaine's original Hydro Archon, a kind and mournful deity named Aggeria, faced a choice no god should ever have to make. Watch her nation collapse under corruption and chaos, or save it by sacrificing herself. Spoiler alert, she picked option B. Aggeria poured her divine essence into the seas of Fontaine, creating the Oratrice Mécanique d'Inquisition, a gigantic law-powered machine that would judge the souls of all Fontaine's citizens. Cold, unfeeling, brutally fair, exactly the opposite of her gentle heart. And then, having literally rewritten the rules of her nation, she let herself dissolve into water. Imagine loving something so much that you become the ocean just so it can keep existing. Meanwhile, I can barely water my plants. Her death wasn't just a sacrifice, it was a curse. Fontaine was now permanently yoked to the concept of justice. Every trial, every show trial, every case of, "Your Honor, my client pleads," vibe check, it all stemmed from Aggeria's final act. Enter Furina, the new Hydro Archon, the new face of Fontaine, or at least that's what the public thought. See, Aggeria's real successor wasn't a single person, it was two halves. Furina, the chaotic showgirl desperate for adoration, and Neuvillette, the ancient dragon of the primordial sea, the real inheritor of Fontaine's elemental power. Only, no one knew that. Not even Furina. At first, Furina was perfect for the job. Fontaine had evolved into a nation that prized public trials like they were spectator sports. Justice wasn't just a principle, it was a full-blown entertainment industry. And Furina? She gave the people what they wanted. High drama, celebrity court battles, verdicts so spicy they could season your dinner. But the cracks were always there. Furina's divine power was suspiciously weak. Her connection to Celestia? Flimsy at best. Her biggest weapon wasn't a godly miracle, it was public opinion. She ruled by performance, not by raw strength. And the prophecy loomed over everything. One day Fontaine would drown, one day their sins would catch up to them, one day no amount of beautiful speeches or theatrical courtroom battles would save them. Faced with existential dread, Furina did what any reasonable person would do. She doubled down on the act. Louder trials, harsher punishments, more elaborate hats. Inside she was terrified, but she couldn't afford to show it. Not when Fontaine needed a strong god, not when her entire existence hinged on being loved. And then came Arlecchino. Because, of course, if your life is a slow-moving car crash, a harbinger will always show up to light it on fire for good measure. Arlecchino exposed Furina's secret. She wasn't the true Hydro Archon. She was a figurehead, an imposter wearing a crown too heavy for her head. The people of Fontaine, who once worshipped her with unblinking adoration, turned on her faster than you can say kangaroo court. And Furina? For the first time, she had no one left to perform for. No stage, no applause, just the crushing, soul-flattening silence of realizing that maybe you were never enough to begin with. But here's where it gets interesting. You'd think faced with humiliation and betrayal, Furina would crumble completely. Instead, she chose to fight. Not for her image, not for power, but for Fontaine itself. When the primordial sea rose to claim the nation, when the streets turned to rivers and the oratrice began its final judgment, Furina stood alongside the traveler, Neuvillette, and every terrified citizen she once entertained. She had no divine power to wield, she had no legal authority to call on, all she had was herself. Meanwhile, Neuvillette, no longer hiding, no longer asleep, revealed his true form. The dragon sovereign of water, the real heart of Fontaine's elemental might. Together, dragon and girl, truth and lie, fought to save what mattered, the people. And standing at Furina's side through all of it, quietly, stubbornly, unflinchingly, was the Traveler. The Traveler didn't care about Furina's titles. They didn't worship her or condemn her or see her as a broken fraud. They saw her as a person. When everyone else recoiled in disappointment, when even Furina herself wanted to crawl into the nearest sewer and disappear, the Traveler reached out. Not to the Archon, but to the scared, hurting girl underneath the crown. In the chaos of Fontaine's fall, it was the Traveler's unwavering trust that anchored Furina. Every choice she made to stand firm, every moment she resisted the drowning despair, was fueled by the simple, devastating belief, maybe I am worth saving after all. The Traveler didn't just save Fontaine, they saved Furina from herself. Because sometimes the greatest miracle isn't defeating a primordial flood or toppling a corrupted system, it's convincing someone that they're more than the lies they were forced to wear. Furina didn't win with overwhelming power. She won by not giving up. Even when the oratress cracked, even when the flood water swallowed the courts, even when every voice screamed she was a fraud, she chose to be brave anyway. In the aftermath, Fontaine was changed forever. The oratress was broken, the prophecy fulfilled, and then defied. Neuvillette took up his rightful role as the protector of Fontaine, not as a distant god, but as a solemn steward of its future. And Furina? She finally laid down the burden of pretending to be something she wasn't. She wandered into the world as just Furina, a girl who once wore a crown made of lies, now walking barefoot into an unknown future. No more stage, no more scripts, just dreams, just possibilities. Sure, she still demands attention. She still monologues about her undeniable greatness to bewildered pigeons. She still gets irrationally angry at slow baristas, but now Furina isn't performing to survive. She's living to discover who she might actually become. And honestly, that might be more divine than anything a god could ever be. Furina's story isn't one of gods or perfect heroes. It's the story of someone thrown onto a stage she didn't choose, forced to wear a crown that never really fit, and expected to perform until she forgot who she was underneath the costume. She wasn't the strongest. She wasn't the wisest. Half the time she barely held herself together with a threat and a very questionable court summons. But she kept going, even when the audience turned on her, even when the applause faded, even when the mask cracked, and there was no one left but a terrified girl standing in the ruins of everything she thought she was. She chose to fight anyway. Because real strength isn't about being flawless. It's about standing up when the world, and sometimes even you, have already decided you shouldn't. Furina proved something that no god descending from Celestia could ever teach. You don't have to be divine to be worth saving. You don't have to be perfect to be loved. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to simply exist, loudly, messily, and gloriously, in a world that tried to script you into silence. That's Furina. Not a god, not a puppet, just a girl who decided she was enough. And honestly, that's the most miraculous thing of all. If you enjoyed this deep dive into existential dread wrapped in glitter and drama, slam that like button like you're issuing a guilty verdict, subscribe for more chaotic lore tales, and drop a comment. If you found out your whole life was a stage play, would you improvise the ending? And yes, you better bring your most dramatic exit pose.